Some are born great. Some achieve greatness. And others have greatness thrust upon them. Now in a franchise full of amazing spirits, from gods, heroes, larger-than-life myths, and this crazy fucker, displaying fights of apocalyptic proportions, with them all competing to obtain the all-powerful, wish-granting Holy Grail, why then does the question of who is the greater king even matter? Which begs the question, what makes a good king? Is it how much he's conquered? His country's wealth? How fairly his people are treated? Well, to our trio, they each think they have the correct ideals. But let's see if what they practice is worth the praise. Alexander the Great, King of Conquerors. He embodies intrinsic authority. Alright, let's break this down. This type of authority is earned. This is the kind a person gets from being in the front, being in the trenches. They are the person who has experienced and can do every aspect of what they ask others to do. Arthuria, King of Knights, who is bestowed authority. This is usually how royal families work. Have a kid, make sure it's a son, hand him the keys to the kingdom when you die, and bada bing, bada boom, you have a successor. Or, there's option number 2, divine right. And the tale of the sword and the stone is very cut and dry. By order from the Archbishop,
whosoever pulleth this sword from this stone shall be the rightful king of all Britain.
And finally, Gilgamesh, the King of Heroes, who was also bestowed authority, but in the first sense. Heir of a king, claiming his birthright to the throne, and the son of a goddess, whose family ruled both the heavens and the earth. Now, neither of these ways of receiving power is inherently better than the other. Someone claiming power based on their achievements, like Alexander, may begin a great rule, but falter as their kingship progresses. Or like Saber, where by divine right they are given the kingdom and create their legend within it. And finally, there is legacy, like Gilgamesh, where they simply inherit the kingdom their family has ruled for generations and become either its stronghold or its ruin. Which brings us to our next point. What then makes a great king? And for that, let's take a quick detour to what many consider a great king in our human history. When Britain was entering the decade that would end with the beginning of the Second World War, the ruler, King George V, tragically, or untragically depending on how far the rabbit hole you go, died, which meant then and there, the oldest of his 2 sons, Edward VIII, was to take the throne. Now Edward to the British people had the makings of a great king, very articulate, charismatic, and loved by the masses. That is, unlike his brother, whose stuttering would cause conversations to drag, a man marred by childhood trauma, and the acceptance that he would never be king. But then, after barely less than a year, Edward abdicated the throne, throwing away his responsibility, his duty, but ultimately, his people. Also, he could marry Wallis Simpson. The result of which catapulted his younger brother into the seat reserved for the king. The British subjects were now being led by a man many would consider unfit. But then came World War II, during a time where he and the royal family could have fled for Canada and avoided the famous London Blitz. Instead, he remained rooted with his people. He would visit soldiers on the front lines on multiple occasions. But even before those moments came the day many claimed silenced all remaining doubts in the public's mind. The day is September 3rd, 1939. And the king is about to announce to the nation that they are at war with Germany. But instead of the public finding out through the morning paper or through a herald, the king instead decides that he himself will address the nation live through the radio. Now, for a man whose stutter was so terrible that his conversations were cluttered with moments of him trying to get the next word out, why then would he choose to go before his subjects, in a moment in which they needed utter confidence in him, and deliver a live speech? Because this was the decision to show his subjects the kind of man he was. Not a man who runs away from his duties due to his unpreparedness. Not a man whose past dictated his future. And ultimately, not a man who chained himself to his setbacks. Instead, he decided to show his subjects the man who would lead their nation. And that great king was King George VI. The difference between a king and a great king is their character. Because when someone is handed the keys to the kingdom, you don't know how it'll go. While they may have a chamber full of advisors, they themselves make the decision. Therefore, if the person in charge has not proven their claim to the throne, what then is the thing they ultimately surrender to in order to make their decrees? For Saber, it's her creed as a knight. And when you break it down, it's easy to see why her character is a martyr to her ideals. Protect the innocent, be of bravery and courage, walk with honor and integrity, and finally, be a person of humility and generosity. While these are commendable attributes to live by, the only downside is that you are always expected to be on the back foot. Saber was the king of those who protect. They build walls that are meant to withstand, but unfortunately in that day and age, walls eventually crumble, and the place you swore to protect has now become a land expecting danger. And then there's Alexander the Great. Besides being one of the most influential people in human history, a great tactician, and a man who conquered both human mind and body, winning a multitude of battles, he wasn't a tyrant slaughtering for the sake of bloodlust and bending the people to his will through violence. Well, except for Thebes. The moment that cemented Alexander's legacy was the speech he delivered to his army in Macedonia.
No man can point to my riches, only the things I hold in trust for you all. And what would I do with them anyway? I eat what you eat. I get no more rest than you. Many times I have spent the night on watch so that you could sleep soundly. Who among you believes he's worked harder for me than I have for him? Come on! If you've got scars, strip and show them to me. I'll show you mine. There isn't one part of my body, the front at least, that doesn't bear a wound. My body's covered in scars from every weapon you can think of. Swords, arrows, stones, clubs. All for the sake of your lives, your glory, and your wealth.
Yes, he was the son of a king, and by divine right, could claim the role of king. But instead, he earned the adoration of the people. And finally, Gilgamesh. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. For a man as arrogant as he is, I think it's only fitting that his philosophy is just as pretentious as he is. But unfortunately, after doing a lot of digging, I couldn't pinpoint exactly what I would call his philosophy. It's a mix of many things, but what I can nail down is that he does embody absolute egoism with a sprinkle of hedonism. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means, I think the best definition is just look at Goldie. He believes everything belongs to him, having an extravagant lifestyle to the detriment of others. He treats his pleasures and happiness as the ultimate goal. And how would he not? He's a demigod. He's bound to have a god complex. So much so to the point where Gilgamesh would extend his ideology on the people by having the young men work to the bone to protect and build up his extravagant kingdom. But wait, don't worry, he didn't forget about the women, as he would enact the god fucking French. Droit du seigneur.
Droit de cuissage.
And sleep with many, if not all, the newlywed women before their husbands. So I guess we can attribute Gilgamesh to the invention of the corner hotel chair. Heck, it even got to the point where the gods were like, alright, we gotta send in this dude to humble him. But what I think is the final showing of their character is their wish for the Grail. Gilgamesh seeks immortality, to ascend above the plane of man, but in the original text, it's out of fear after his best friend dies. Saber wishes she could save Britain from its destruction and relinquish the authority that was thrust upon her when she pulled the sword from its resting place. And finally, Alexander wishes to be reincarnated to conquer the world, with the part of me believing the core of the wish being related to his speech in Macedonia, to bring prosperity to those who follow him. So then, who of these three actually have a claim that the Grail is rightfully theirs? I'm actually curious, what's your opinion? But for me, I think none of them. It's a tournament. Win the damn thing. It's a fucking tournament. What do you think? They're gonna hand it to you? So then I ask you, who do you think is a good king? Some are born great. Some achieve greatness. And some have greatness thrust upon them. So if you had to choose your king, which manner of greatness would you follow?